ಆ ಮೈದಾನಗಳು ಬಹಳ ಪರಿಣಾಮಕಾರಿಯಾದ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಯುವ ಶಕ್ತಿಯನ್ನ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ಆಟದ ಮೈದಾನಗಳಿಗೆ ಕರೆತರುವಂತಹ, ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರನ್ನ ಉತ್ತೇಜಿಸುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ನೈತಿಕ ಮತ್ತು ಗುರುತರವಾದ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇವತ್ತ ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಇದೆ. ಈ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷಯ ತಜ್ಞರು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ರೀತಿಯ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮ ಮಾಹಿತಿಗಳನ್ನ ನೀಡಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನ ಪಡೆದು ತಮ್ಮ ವೃತ್ತಿ ಸಾಮರ್ಥ್ಯವನ್ನ ವೃದ್ಧಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೆಮಿನಾರ್ ಸಹಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ. ಇದರ ಪೂರ್ಣ ಪ್ರಯೋಜನವನ್ನ ಪಡೆದ ಕ್ರೀಡಾಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳು ಉತ್ತಮ ಕ್ರೀಡಾಪಟುಗಳನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಮಿಸಿ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಭವ್ಯ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನ ಕಾಪಾಡುತ್ತೀರಿ ಎಂಬ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ನನಗಿದೆ. ಇಂತಹ ಮಹತ್ವದ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ ಸಂಘಟಿಸಿದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಾಲೇಜಿನ ಪ್ರಾಂಶುಪಾಲರುಗಳಿಗೆ, ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲ ತಜ್ಞರಿಗೆ, ದೈಹಿಕ ನಿರ್ದೇಶಕರುಗಳಿಗೆ ಕೃತಜ್ಞತಾ ಪೂರ್ವಕವಾದ ಶುಭಾಶಯವನ್ನ ಕೋರಿ ನನ್ನ ಮಾತುಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಗಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Thank you, ma'am. Your words were very informative and certainly a takeaway. ಕ್ರೀಡೆ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ, ಕ್ರೀಡಾಂಗಣದ ಪ್ರಾಮುಖ್ಯತೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಮನದಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Now, I look forward to hear from Dr. Ajay Chandran CK, Principal, SJVIT, Bengaluru, our guest of honor, to share a few thoughts with the august gathering. Sir, over to you.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Purraju Sir, Mandya University, Mandya. Honorable Mr. Anil Kumar Suravaran, Managing Director, Great Sports Tech Limited, Hyderabad. It is a great honor to be with all the dignitaries on this important live seminar on sports engineering, concepts and design of sports surfaces. Totally organized in collaboration with RV College of Engineering, SJB Institute of Technology, and SBRR Mahajana First Grade College, Mysuru. First of all, I take this opportunity to congratulate the organizers. These kind of seminars not only enables us to think in terms of the future, also it enhances our commitment to sports culture in our regular academic days at schools. Part of the great institution SJBIT, founded by our Jagadguru, Sri Dr. Balaganathanatha Mahaswamiji. Today, during this conference, it's a proud privilege to know that our founder principal, Dr. Purraju Sir, is also chairing the session as a keynote speaker. With Swamiji's blessings, with our Pujya Sri Dr. Nirmalandanatha Mahaswamiji's blessings, with our Pujya Managing Director, Sri Dr. Prakashnath Swamiji's blessing, Dr. Purraju Sir had enabled SJBIT with all the sporting facilities. You name it, we have it. All the facilities indoor as well as outdoor, we have it. And we take a lot of pride in saying that we have represented VTU with almost more than 25 representation of students. And 7 students from SJBIT has represented the state in the nationals. Not only the representation, SJBIT was recognized by VTU by awarding a cash prize of 1 lakh consecutively 3 years. So all the credit goes to the founder principal and the team led by Professor Renganath Sir, who is our able sports director. Today, I'm happy to note that being part of the organizing secretariat, we have Renganath Sir along with his able colleagues from both the institutions, RV as well as SBRR Mahajana First Grade College. When we look at national education policy, we also feel and have note that NEP gives tremendous impetus to sports, to culture, to the overall development. I'm sure all the institutional representatives, all the leaders, my good colleague, principal of RV College is also there with me, Dr. K.N. Subramania sir, he is also keen And I'm same way, all of us are keen to see that every student who are in our portals of learning, in our temples of learning, we are interested in the overall development of the individual. A strong well-being in terms of soul and mind, along with a very fit physical regime of a student. We are focusing at the student-centric development, where sports will play a key role. And with all the infrastructure in most of
collaboration, not competition among ourselves. See, the internal competition among ourselves doesn't lead us anywhere. I feel we should work together as the number of colleges and as a state, as a country, so that we can encourage sports in a better way. Otherwise, my college got first place, your college got first place. These are okay. These are all the some short-term benefits we will look into it. But at the end of the day, you have some facilities. Can I use it? I have got some facilities. Can your people come and do here? I think these are collaboration as a principal of RV College of Engineering. I am looking at, because in RV, sports has been the lifeline, not just today. From the beginning of our institution 58 years back, we have produced very good sports people to the country, starting from Anil Kumble, who was an ace cricketer. Then we have Chetan Babu, who represented Olympics in table tennis long time back. And recently, actually, there are two of my students, one from civil and other from aerospace engineering. Both are brothers. They have participated in swimming in Asian Games. They represented the country. And we have other people, 3 to 4 people who are into the table tennis, then into the shooting, then to the chess. They're all the national and internationally ranked students who are all alumni, and they also got Ekalavya awards last year. So apart from the accolades, whatever we win, so all of us to try to, according to me, try to bring some good ecosystem. That is what very important according to me. So sports, I always have a question in mind. I have got 6,000 students. Let me tell you, not all 6,000 play sports. This is a concern for me. We all talk that, we have to ask students to pay, but somehow we are failing to do that because they are more into, let us say, mobiles or laptops or things of that sort rather than playing the sports. I can say confidently, not more than 1,000 students play sports in my college. What about next 5,000 students? It doesn't mean if you want to play sports or games, it doesn't mean that they have to always represent a college, state, or a country. It's for their good well-being, actually, for the health to be maintained. So this is a challenge. I think all of us have to work together, try to see how we can make our people play. Because on an average, at least in cities, students are in mobile phone for more than 5 to 6 hours. That is the statistics in cities. So out of that, if they can take out 2 hours in a day or the evening, I think they can play sports in a better way. They can, their physique and the mental, body, mind, and the soul, all these things could be maintained in a better way, and longevity can also be improved. Then generally what happens is by society, I feel in India, we take still sports as a, what is that called, as a secondary kind of a hobby. If you ask any parent in any house, everybody wants them to become doctors or engineers or something else in a professional course. But ask any parent, will they want to straight away take sports as the profession? The percentage is very, very, very less. Now actually slowly it is starting. I'm sure many of the new age universities are starting sports engineering or sports management itself as the courses, the PE programs, everything they're starting. So let us hope at least in the next decade, we also encourage, because sports is a profession. I don't know how many of you know. In America, if you take, the highest paid profession is sports actually. Highest paid profession. Somebody playing for a National Basketball Association, NBA, or somebody is playing for a football. You know how much is the money they are making. If people think that software engineers only make a lot of money, according to me, it is wrong. Sports is a huge area. In fact, need not be a direct sports person. I have got a lot of statistics about the employability in sports management. Other day I gave a talk also in one of our seminars. See, you take sports analytics. You know, if somebody is doing a sports analytics, you know what is his yearly salary in America? It is coming to around 75 lakhs per annum. Is a beginner getting a salary in the sports analytics? So we should tell our students, somebody who's interested in, let us say, doing real mainline sports, let them do it. Somebody can go into analytics, somebody can become a coach, somebody can become a psychotherapist. There are a lot of additional areas also. People can do it. I think somewhere our promotion and marketing of these things is very, very important in institutions. I feel if we do this in colleges, automatically it gets spread across the society. So that is my humble request to all people who are involved in the sports, that how can you market these things in a better way, and ask at least some 10% of our students to focus more on these areas. Because if you see other countries, everywhere there is professionalism, lot of professionalism. I think we have to build that, according to me, in even sports and the games, whatever we're looking at. Then, as I've already told you, let us all collaborate. Actually, let us all collaborate with each other. Let us compete in a right spirit. It doesn't matter. But according to me, whether he is my student or your student, he is representing India after all in Olympics. I think that we should keep it in mind. So we all join together, particularly the sports directors. I think across the state, there needs to be a lot of discussions which has to happen. I feel they may be meeting when they go for any competitions in other colleges or the universities. But according to me, they also need a lot of such training programs so that they can motivate students in a better way. And as far as RV College of Engineering is concerned, somebody was talking about yoga. We have started implementing new education policy from this academic year onwards. We have already made the first year syllabus ready. And we are having 1 credit course yoga for the first semester students itself. So in the first year, we have 1 credit yoga, which is a credited course. And it is considered as a lab actually. We are going to have it as a lab, and we have a lot of faculty members who are yoga trainers, and we have a very good yoga team run by more than 250 students in the college. So we want to take help of all these people and run this course of 1 credit. And in the second and third year, we have already planned in the beginning sports engineering, NSS, NCC, and all the other things as the elective courses in the beginning. Then slowly we want to make, let us say, a separate let us say stream for sports engineering itself. So these are some of my thoughts in this morning. I hope we all work together and try to see how can we bring our next generation, first of all, to build them a good health, according to me is most important, because we have seen how poor we are across the world when the pandemic has come. Somebody doesn't have confidence, somebody has a fear, somebody doesn't know how to physically take care of themselves, somebody are medically weak. So many problems related to health are there. So I feel sports is one solution, according to me, if we can try to participate things in a better way. And of course, making the sports professionals also is going to become, but there's a lot of technology. In fact, the usage of technology in sports in our country has to enhance a lot. In fact, this year I guided a project with all my top swimmer, a table tennis player, and a chess player. And I got a very good technology-based studies done for these people. And it was a final year 8th semester project. An interdisciplinary project was done. So we should also start encouraging students to do projects in the using the technology. So with these things, I feel that these things can go a long way. In fact, we have listened to the speaker of the day. In fact, he's very, very popular speaker actually. He is very good. Other day when we conducted the seminar, he gave such a beautiful thing about the sports surfaces. I feel all the participants today are going to enjoy his talk. And this is the second time we are organizing from him based on the Prajagala Vattayada Merege antaralla. Atara we have organized this talk because it is a very, very good talk. Any sports person should be in a position to know about the sports surfaces. He has done a lot of research work in these areas. I suppose he is going to present all those things. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation again, sir. We'll be in touch with you, and we also request you to help our institutions in making better surfaces for our sports also. So thank you very much once again. I wish you all the best for all the organizers for organizing this, and participants a happy learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, your words were the need of the hour. We as human beings need to have a paradigm shift to appreciate every achievement. Also, sir, Also, sir,
you have
highlighted the importance of different college expertise to make things better. Thank you, sir. Working on the same lines, probably we would be able to achieve more. May I request Dr. Organizing Secretary, Education Teacher, SDRR College, Mysuru, introduce the keynotes, Dr. Raju.
Very good morning. I take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Puttaraju, Vice Chancellor, Mandya, University Mandya, who is going to give keynote address. Dr. Puttaraju is working as a Vice Chancellor of Mandya University Mandya. He completed BE AIT Chikmagalur, MTech NIT Karnataka, PhD IIT Kanpur with 32 years of experience in administration and teaching in engineering colleges, and founder principal of SJBIT. Academic achievement: initiated comprehensive upskilling programs leading to the creations of employable graduates, established several centers of excellence with R&D potentials, changed pedagogy from conventional to digital mode using Apple framework. Personal vision: rich experience should be used to build better education system benefiting thousands of stakeholders than utilizing for personal gains. He served as academic senate member for 3 times, chairman of board of studies, research grant review committee member, research registration expert committee, local inquiry committee, and PhD expert committee (PTU). Life member of Indian Society for Technical Education, Indian Geotechnical Society, Indian Institute of Engineers, India. World Bank assisted project, integrated rural water supply and environment sanitation project. This project was aimed at creating awareness among the village people about the importance of quality water, cleanliness, and environmental sanitation. Sir has published a number of technical papers, more than 25 papers presented, and national and international conferences. Sir also served as a sports and cultural committee member of VTU and passionate badminton player. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bhaskar sir. I now request Dr. Puttaraju sir, Vice Chancellor, Mandya University, Mandya, to present the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Sir, yes, sir, you're audible. You're audible.
Okay, it's clear, no? Audio and video?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Good morning and a warm greetings to you all. Respected Anil Kumar Sivaranamji, principals of RVCE, SJBIT, and SBRR, Mahajan First Grade College, physical education directors of respective institutions, other organizing members of this conference, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be a part of this national seminar on concepts and designs of sports surfaces. My sincere thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to express my views on the very interesting topic. Please accept my honest compliments for coming out of very interesting topic in the physical education domain, that is the surfaces. Education should not be focusing only on brain power, but should focus also on physical power. We can build strong personality. Only if mental and physical aspects are given equal importance. are given equal importance. Vishwanathji, I think there is some echo. Okay. I think it is clear now.
Yes, sir.
Recent success in Olympic sports, I think, has attracted the attention of the world. So is the case with most of the youngsters in the country. There is no dearth of talent in India, but it needs to be harnessed very systematically to give fruitful results. A country's progress is measured in several ways, like gross domestic product, human development index, life expectancy, etc. We keep on telling this every now and then, but it will never attract the attention of the common person. But now every household knows all Olympic champions, and they attracted the attention of the world. Particularly the gold medal by Mr. Neeraj Chopra, and is a common talk across the world. Now yesterday, a couple of more Olympic gold medals are also doing rounds. That is the beauty of the sports. Mr. Neeraj Chopra is the first Indian athlete to win gold ever. It is next to impossible to achieve this feat if you cannot understand whole philosophy of sports. You're competing against best of the best in the world. Forget winning, even qualifying for Olympic Games is a big achievement. But if you look at India's performance in sports as a whole, it is not satisfactory. Small countries like Japan, Great Britain, France, Germany, in terms of population extent, etc., have contributed immensely well, very well in the Olympic sports. India is in the 48th position, whereas population-wise, we are the second biggest in the world. Even though China is the number one in terms of population, but it has performed appropriately in Olympics, securing second position, and that is 38 golds against 39 golds of the US. Japan has secured 27 golds. And you know, the Japan population, it is just double the Karnataka state population. Karnataka state is 6.84 crores and Japan population is 12.63 crores. But where are we? Where is the problem then? We need to introspect. There is no depth, as I said, of talents in Indian soil. There are a good number of measures and policies at both center and state. What I'm seeing is the policy paralysis in the implementation. We are good in policy framing, but weak in implementation. Also, we need to blame our society, which is very conservative. Parents always insist on good marks and getting a good job. Students are not ready to take challenges that are there in sports activities because there is no such real provisions or accountability for sports person in the society. That means to say that our education system is not comprehensive. We need to come out of present rote learning and adopt activity and problem-based learning. When I use the education, particularly in Indian context, it implies that getting a good degree, possibly with a rank, and later a job of maybe 10 to 20 lakhs per annum. And this is we call as an achievement. And where is the scope for creativity? No matter what type of degree students get, most of them would end up as software engineers. It is killing totally the physical activities of the candidates, and there is less scope for creativity. But now there is a ray of hope to accommodate the talents of the students in curriculum. The new education policy is designed to address the problem. Profession and passion are given equal importance in NEP 2020. It is very coincidental that the sports education is given its due share in NEP 2020. It is a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary with good number of choices to make along with the core subjects. Students can opt for courses like sports, music, dance, etc. so that the hidden talents of the students are identified and supported at all levels. It will be student and teacher-centric learning and very comprehensive. NEP 2020 was accepted by the center in the year 2020, and Karnataka is the first state to accommodate this NEP 2020 from this academic year itself. Now, there is no doubt that our talents in sports will get its due recognition at the state and central level. The stage is set. But this is not sufficient. Winning at the highest level needs 100% performance and understanding subtleties of sports. To be successful at the highest level of competition, one need to have strong personality, understand the biomechanics, understand the materials and surfaces, and understand the design principles involved in each and every sport. And as Professor Subramanian was telling, data analytics, to do a lot of analysis of the data. When I say that personality, I think students, the candidates should have self-confidence, strong sense of motivation. You can see Dr. Mr. Anil Kumble, who was the alumnus of RV College of Engineering. I heard a story from a former principal, Mr. Pallaji, saying that Anil Kumble ji used to go to the field at 3:30 in the morning, started practicing against the wall. That is a kind of strong sense of motivation and confidence he had. So he could achieve because with all these arts, and that is a self-motivation. And inner desire to success, self-discipline, optimism, willingness to take criticism. Most of the sports person take a lot of criticism if they're not doing good in the first round or second round. So one should not stop at that point with this criticism. And humility. I had seen how these sports personalities are different from other personality in the different domains. Their personality is totally different. They are very humble, and ability to manage stress and low anxiety, strong sense of focus, everything, perfectionism, and should have a killer instinct in the end. If I compare these, the traits of a good sports person with the traits of a software person, I think you work for 8 to 10 hours in a day and you get a good rank and you'll get a good job. Why would a person come to the sports when there is so much of limitations or expectation from the sports domain? That is really hurting the people with the talent to enter into the sports section. So most of us are very complacent. We are happy with what we are having without really understanding our full potential. That is personality. When it comes to biomechanics, we have done a lot of research and the understanding of this strength of material, particularly in engineering. The movement, the force applied onto the moving objects, it could be man or material. So there is a lot of theoretical aspects that should be integrated into the sports, and that I think in the highest level they do it. And next comes to the materials and surfaces. This is the topic of today's seminar, and very interesting. And I would like to recollect Kumble's haul of 10 wickets in the cricket, and it all because of the surface reaction. You could get all 10 wickets in the afternoon, none in the morning. It is because of the tricky situation that prevailed because of the variations in the humidity or moisture. That indicates that the importance of the same Kumble could not take 1 wicket in the morning and could take all 10 wickets in the evening. That indicates that the importance of the surfaces for a player of the world class. And in this direction, I think this is a fantastic thing. This is also being addressed. And design principles. As I said, we are all doing it in the silos. We don't interact. Many people, they prepare the material and surfaces, and we don't understand the subtlety of these material surfaces. And when it comes to design principles, again, we are totally weak, and that needs to be addressed. And finally, with all huge data available, are we really concluding anything? Where did we go wrong if you are not doing on par with Japan, such a small country? Even though it is a proud moment for all Indians that this year Olympics is a landmark. This is the biggest achievement ever made by Indian athletics or Olympians. But there is some ways of addressing the problem in all the 5 domains which are listed. And last one is data analysis. So that is needs to be done. And if all these domains are integrated in the sports education, I think we'll be very successful ones. I'm really happy that the importance of surfaces and materials is the point of discussions everywhere. And most of the countries which are really doing good, they have understood the philosophy of these materials and the surfaces, along with the biomechanics and along with the data analytics. And hope this NEP 2020 has given the full freedom to the teachers and the students and the college. And most of the colleges in the Karnataka state, they've already started accommodating yoga, physical education, exercise, all aspects, identifying the students' strengths. And along with the core group, he will be trained even in the sports and other education domains. And this is going to be a turning point. One is a Olympic success, and the other one is the implementation of the NEP. And I'm really happy RV College of Engineering with such a has joined hands with HJBIT and our Mysore College to host this seminar. And this seminar definitely will bring out something in the youth. I'll try to remember one thing. ಗುಂಡಪ್ಪನವರು ಹೇಳಿದ ಹಾಗೆ ಜಟ್ಟಿ ಕಾಳಗದಿ ಗೆಲ್ಲದಡೆ ಗರಡಿಯ ಸಾಮು ಪಟ್ಟು ವರ್ಷಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ವಿಫಲವೆನ್ನೆಯ ಏನು ಮುಟ್ಟಿ ನೋಡವನ ಮೈಕಟ್ಟು ಕಬ್ಬಿಣ ಗಟ್ಟಿತನ ಗರಡಿಯ ಪಲ್ಲ ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. So the gym goer, if he doesn't win in the competition, it doesn't mean that his efforts in the gym have gone waste. But he got a beautiful body, strong and very structured ones. And that is because of the gym workout. So in a way, either we win or we win our body, we get a very strong body. And I think, this pandemic has taught us a lesson, not for the sports person. Most of the sports person, without their knowledge, it has entered in their body and left their body without affecting much. That indicates that they have a strong mind and a strong body. I try to remember one thing. It is foolish to think that one can have a strong mind in a weak body. Strong mind and weak body will never go together. It is always together, strong mind and strong body. Let us build a strong mind and a strong body together. And all our, both the 3 colleges, RV College of Engineering, Dr. Subramanya ji, HJBIT, Dr. Ajay Chandran ji, and Dr. Jaykumar ji from Mahajan College, and of course, Dr. Bhaskar, Dr. Ranganath, and Dr. Vishwanath, and of course, other advisors have taken a lot of efforts in bringing all these people on one platform. I think this is the right time to launch a new thing in the new directions of sports. Once again, I wish this national seminar on this materials and surfaces a grand success. Hope that this will be very fruitful in the days to come. Thank you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. Your presence and keynote address have added glory to the event. All that I was able to understand from your address was success is not a phenomena, it is an attitude. Thank you, sir, on reiterating it. And you have always set an example as a sportsman amidst your administrative responsibilities. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
One request, with due permission and from Anil Kumar Savaranji, I have a program at 11 o'clock in Mandya. With all permission from everybody, I would like to leave. Thank you. Sometime later, we will meet you and we'll have one more program in Monday University.
Certainly, sir. And it was a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And it was really very nice to hear such a nice message from you. Especially, I'm very happy you emphasized the fact about, sports persons pursuing the sport, not necessarily always to win, but there is always a benefit. They are always a winner, even if they don't particularly have a medal. I think it's a very profound message. I hope that's something taken, by the country at large, because that's the difference. We shouldn't be a country only looking at winners alone, but everybody who's trying and everybody who's participating, they are also winners in themselves. It's a great message that you gave. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope to catch up with you some other time.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Shall I leave?
Please.
Okay. Thank you.
I now call upon Mr. Ranganath G.H., Physical Education Director, SJB Institute of Technology, Bengaluru, to introduce the speaker, the stalwart of today's event. Over to you, sir.
Jai Shri Gurudev. With the blessings of Pujya Mahaswamiji, it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Anil Kumar Suravaram to the August gathering. Anil Kumar sir is the founder managing director of Great Sports Tech, incepted in 2004, and now one of the leading sports infrastructure company in South Asia. Under his leadership, Great Sports Tech has executed some of the most prestigious and innovative sports infra projects over the last 17 years across 8 countries in South Asia, and recognized for their highest quality products, innovative technologies, and professional services. GSL was awarded as India's top 100 SMEs out of over 49,000 nominations, Best Professional Services in Sports Award by FICCI and the Scotch Achievers Award, etc. His achievements were recognized with the Emerging Entrepreneur Award by CII. He was featured in the Young Turks program in CNBC, TV18, and other business programs on ET Now. Now, NDTV Profit and in over a dozen business publications like INC, Entrepreneur, Smart CEO, etc. He is a regular speaker in various forums like FICCI, TIE, CII, and at a various seminar on sports entrepreneurship. He is a life member of TIE CEO Clubs of India, a member of National Sports Committee of FICCI and CII, and a founder director of Sports Engineering Association of India. He was a national level sportsman in athletics and handball. He also achieved state and national honors in NCC. Anil is a first generation entrepreneur with engineering and MBA degrees and later an executive development program from Kelang School of Management. He worked at Wipro Technologies and Ramco System India and the US before incepting Great Sports Tech. Now, I request the Honorable Speaker of the day to address the gathering. Thank you, sir.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Ranganath. And of course, very good morning to my fellow panelists, very honorable members, Dr. Ajay Chandran, of course, Professor Dr. Puttaraju had to leave, but I'm very happy to be in the company of Dr. Amarnath, Dr. Jaykumar, Dr. K. N. Subramania, Major Raghavendra, and Professor Vishwanath, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. And I hope to do justice to the introduction that was made earlier. I hope to make this a nice and informative session. As one of the speakers mentioned, we had a similar, I think it was Dr. K. N. Subramania who mentioned that we did have a similar session some time back, and there was a request that there could be other participants. It's really very nice to see that we have over 200 participants, and that's a really very encouraging sign that there is an interest all across to learn more about sports. I don't consider myself necessarily the greatest expert, but certainly during our 17 years, in this business, we certainly have strived to always bring in very good technologies, very innovative technologies, and more importantly, we have tried to advise and guide any entity, whether it's a corporate campus, whether it is an educational institution, or whether it's a sports facility, it's a professional stadium, it could be the government. We have tried to guide them in terms of what is an appropriate and an optimal way of building a sports facility, because sometimes we all tend to always start off with the mission that we want to build the world's best stadium, all of that. These are good ambitions to have, but not always they are practical necessarily, nor can we necessarily afford that every facility has to be world class, not really necessarily. And, given that almost all the participants here are big influencers and big decision makers in what the future of sports infrastructure will be in India, it is my humble effort to try and share some of my experiences and some of my knowledge, if you may say, in terms of what could be various options that you may consider while conceptualizing and designing sports facilities. So with that brief background, I will look to then get into my presentation. Is there some way that I could have the option to share the screen, please? If someone could kindly guide me on that.
Sir, in the below
please.
option, there is a share option is there. Go to share.
I'm not getting the share option yet. So maybe someone has to.
They have to give permission.
As a
I think Somesh.
No, sir. It's there, sir, already. You are the presenter, sir.
Somesh, check it once again. Somesh.
Yeah, because it doesn't yet show. Maybe I just need to be designated as a speaker or something.
You are the presenter, sir.
Maybe, I don't know. Okay.
So it's not still highlighted, sir?
No, it's not yet highlighted. Maybe it'll take a minute.
ವಿಶ್ವನಾಥ್ ಸೋಮೇಶ್ ಹೇಳಿ
ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್ ಈಗ
ಅಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಬಟ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್
one second.
Yeah, because the share option is still grayed out, so maybe it takes a minute.
Correct.
So if you can, in the meantime, yes, that would be helpful. Is there some way to refresh the screen that may allow me to?
Maybe I think you may have to go out and come back. Let's check once, sir. That's better. Just log out once and enter again. Sometimes it gets stuck. We don't know.
Anil sir, shall I share your slide at least?
Yeah, I'll just give it one try. Are you?
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me.
You can log out and come back again, sir. We'll try that. Otherwise, he will share. That would be better.
Can you? I think it has now come up.
Okay, fine. You have opened your PowerPoint now, sir.
Yes, yeah. So is it visible that it is loading?
Still, it's not visible. It may take some time.
Okay, it is saying, yeah, it is here. It is saying that it's loading. It seems to be uploading the file. It's a fairly large file. So, but anyway, it is loading. I think probably in a few seconds it should work. We'll just make it easier to just go through. Dr. Vishwanath, if you can confirm to me how much time we have, I will plan my presentation accordingly.
1 hour is there, sir.
Okay. So
Right now.
very good. I'm glad to see.
You can go ahead, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Everybody able to see that, I hope. Okay. So, yeah. So is that fine, Dr. Vishwanath? I'll probably do like a 45-50 minute session at most and leave
Yes,
some time for Q&A. I think it'll be more relevant to probably take questions, I would hope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so this is just a very, I've just kept just one slide to, just give a brief description about what we do as a company that I founded in 2004. And this is basically we are into sports infrastructure, and we've been in this business for 17 years. We pride ourselves in being able to not just execute projects, but we help design and build projects. So we do a very customized approach to based on what is the need of that particular facility, what is the objective of that facility, to what is the budget that you have, what level of usage that you anticipate. Is it a single sport, multi-sport, various things, and then we help design such facilities. We have executed projects in 8 countries in South Asia. You can see the list of countries there, mostly the neighboring countries, but we have done right up to Thailand and Maldives and Mauritius. And of course, in Kabul, which is quite in the news today, we have done a cricket academy there as well for Afghanistan Cricket Association. And of course, most of our projects, because of the necessity of what the objectives there are, they have to meet and conform to whether it is FIFA standards or FIA standards or what is now called World Athletics, which, as most of you know, was previously called IAAF. So we generally do it at that level, but of course we do a lot of amateur level facilities as well. So with this background, again, these are just a few pictures of some of the projects we have done across hockey and football and pretty much every sport. It is interesting. Some of you, obviously, a lot of you are from actually Karnataka. You may notice I'm also mentioning about Chinnaswamy Stadium. Some of you who follow cricket may have heard about one very interesting project that we have done there for Chinnaswamy Stadium about 3 or 4 years ago. If there is time permitting, I have a 2-minute video or 2.5-minute video. I'll try and show that. We did the world's first vacuum-powered automated suction system and subsurface aeration system. It may sound a bit complicated, but basically, this is the first cricket stadium in the world where we have an underground network of pipes which are interconnected and which is connected to a very large 200 horsepower machine which is housed under the stands, and we have moisture sensors in the outfield which get activated whenever there is rain, even without any human intervention, and they begin to draw out water like over 10,000 liters per minute, which is why everybody in Karnataka should be very proud that this stadium is now designated by BCCI as the most preferred stadium to always host any match that they necessarily have to host in monsoon, because they know that this is the stadium that can be most ready for a cricket match within 5 minutes of the rain stopping. So basically, we are able to draw out rainwater faster than it can rain, 10,000 liters per minute. So, of course, nowadays when we see some rainouts in England or various other places, we know that they should soon be adopting such technologies. But anyway, we'll come back to that if we have the time. I look to progress on to the subsequent slide. Like I was saying at the start, all of you generally need to ask yourselves at the start of, when you're planning a facility, as to what is it that we're looking to really have as the objective of this facility. And I say this in the context that not every facility needs to be built as if it's going to host the Olympics. It is not. We all know that that's not necessarily going to be the case. And therefore, we should be right-sizing our space requirement, our budget requirement, and even the cost of its maintenance. So we have to see whether it is just a recreational or an amateur level facility, which for most schools and universities, frankly, that is actually quite sufficient. what it allows you to do is that with a given budget, you will be able to build more facilities and therefore allow either more sports to be provided to your students, or you may be able to provide multiple number of the same facilities with the same budget, rather than trying to do every time, you want to build, for example, a badminton court, or, a badminton indoor stadium, for example. You may be aware that even at the national level, if you ever are going to host even an inter-state or an inter-university or, any such tournament, a 30 feet height is sufficing even for international level play. Only Olympics, for example, require a 40 feet ceiling. And you don't want to, just for ego, or just that you keep mandating to your, to your surface provider saying that I want the best in the world, and they end up over designing it. So we have to be very careful that we have to right size and right design and give a very optimal design to what we are looking to do. So, and like I said, in terms of what is sufficient for a recreational or amateur facility, we also have to see what is required for a training facility. Now, when I say training, yes, we may all feel that, even our university students are going to be training. Yes, they are going to be training. There's a fine balance between what a university level training may be for, again, an amateur level team that may just be practicing for, just to put a team together for an upcoming inter-university, versus some of the university students who are very clearly potential to be going extremely high in terms of their achievements, and who will be representing the state and perhaps the country. And for that, you may want to then pick to say that, okay, typically as a sports culture in this region, or based on the popularity of certain sports here, we tend to have extremely good talent for a certain sport. There are some regions, for example, in Karnataka, I'm told, the Coorg area, obviously a lot of very good hockey players have come. There are some regions from where athletes have come. Certainly cricket is always popular. So we have to see where is it that we want to build a good training facility, which again will be maybe one step below an international level or a national level facility, but it will be still far more expensive than a recreation or amateur facility. But we may need to make sure that the dimensions are as per international standards and various other facilities, and it should be injury free, particularly more so with repetitive stress injuries that can be avoided. So these are some aspects there. And then, of course, you really then have to see, are you really going to need to build a competitions and a certifications kind of a facility? They do come at a very high expense. For example, a football field with a natural grass, if you're going to have occasional play, can be as little as maybe 20, 30, 40 lakhs, depending on the size and depending on the soil conditions and climatic conditions. On the other hand, if you were to build a synthetic turf football field of FIFA standard, and you are looking for FIFA 2-star, or what is now called a FIFA Quality Pro. There are two levels of certification. You have FIFA Quality or FIFA Quality Pro. What used to be earlier called FIFA 1-star or 2-star. So for that, instead of the 30, 40, 50 lakh investment, something like that may require you to have an investment anywhere from 2.5 to 4 crores, depending on the type of turf and the size and various other aspects. And if you were to build the same thing to host an international competition, because then FIFA will require you to have certain number of seating availability, accommodation, or rather the rooms for the staff, for officials and for the referees, for the players, and for, the toilets and gym and physiotherapy and first aid. And there are so many things that suddenly build up on the cost, and you don't want to unnecessarily incur that cost. You have to see that, for example, and this is probably going to drive the point very well, almost 80 or 85% of a stadium's investment will go into the grandstand, the gallery construction. And only 5 to 15% will actually go into the surface construction, the actual surface area, these sports surfaces, which are actually used 90 or 95% of the time. As you all know, most of the stadiums will not have, gallery fully occupied or even partially occupied 350 out of 365 days. So for those few occasions, we have to see whether we are going to invest 80 or 85% of the total outlay, and rather than that, you are going to provide more sports surfaces for more of your students to actually encourage them to take up, playing and, to make it available even during peak hours. So this is really what I wanted wanted to just differentiate that. Let us all look to move away from the conventional thinking that, oh, we have to build a world-class facility and, we want to build an Olympic, or some facility like that. So let us be very balanced in terms of our approach. That's my humble suggestion. Going to the specifics of the sports surface, again, some of this may be familiar to many, but may not be as familiar to all. As you all know, all outdoor fields, for example, you certainly need to make sure that right at the time of planning the overall, campus itself, that you are leaving sufficient space with the right alignment or what is called the right orientation, so that, you are having a geographical north-south alignment for the field. All outdoor fields, if you can recall now, whether it is from cricket to football to athletic tracks to every field that you can see, outdoor will always be north-south. As you know, this has to do with, preventing the rising or setting sun from falling in the eyes of the players or the goalkeeper or anything like that. And therefore, it is important that not just that you are leaving aside the total width and length that is required, for example, for an athletic track, but it is in an east-west direction, you will not get a World Athletic certification. You'll not get that IAAF certification. So it is important that we make sure that these are very properly aligned, and then, of course, the rest of it will follow. We need to make sure that, when we do the site survey, it is done with a total station. We are marking existing trees or boulders. We need to also make sure to advise whoever is taking up the project. We have to tell them in good faith if any of these sites, had, for example, trees that were previously uprooted, or if it had an old well or something, because without that knowledge, the contractor there may not be able to give special treatment to treat that area. And within a 6 months or 1 year, it may lead to sinking of the surface in that area, and which, will lead to disputes because this has not been disclosed. They have not been given the opportunity to treat it properly and make sure that it does not lead to any sinking. And, so these are things that we need to be very clear and upfront, because this is in everybody's interest that we disclose whatever is there and make sure that those are catered for and treated accordingly. Soil test, of course, based on if you have, black soil, there is a completely different treatment because of, the percolation rate of water. If it is clayish in condition, or, what may happen when there are rains and when it is summer, the expansion and contraction when it is black soil. So there are many aspects that are, that you have to also insist that somebody just doesn't come in and, start doing some subbase without adhering to the required treatment that is as per the soil conditions. Of course, you have to make sure that the designs and drawings are all taken a look at, not just the dimensions, which people tend to see only the dimensions. Please make sure that you're asking for the cross-section of the subbase. You are making sure that the slopes are conforming to the respective sport levels. For example, in FIFA, you can have a slope sideways, but you cannot have a slope lengthwise. Whereas in hockey, you will have what is called a turtle back. Turtle back means the center of the hockey field is actually at the highest height, but actually there are slopes both in the length and the width. What is the percentage of that slope and all that? These are very easy to find out, online or in the FIH website or FIFA website. But the point is that you need to make sure that they are all conforming to such slopes. A good company will certainly make sure that they are all complying very well. You have to make sure that the thickness of each layer is also very, very appropriate, that you're not compromising on, for example, at the bottom, you may have what is called a GSB layer, granular subbase. If you minimize on the thickness of the granular subbase, and which may sometimes be required because you have a, black soil layer and you have to take that out and, do some moram, what is called a moram filling or something, make sure that it is adequately compacted. Also, one other, again, just in passing, I'm saying, many times we take way too much time in reaching a decision to go ahead and, do a certain field. And after that, we compromise in the time given for the actual execution. Please remember that any facility that you're building, you want it to last, depending on the facility, whether it is 10 years, 15, 20 years, whatever. And especially when you're trying to rush through that just to meet a certain deadline for which you're not planned adequately, you are pressurizing everybody, and there is a compromise in the work. There is a compromise in allowing certain materials. These are all, a lot of them are natural materials, in the subbase, which need enough compaction, which need enough, settling down with certain watering or whatever it may be. If we rush through that and just look to, quickly get to the synthetic surfacing layer, you will find that, in terms of a short-term objective, you've compromised on the long-term utility and benefit from that surface. So please make sure that you're always providing adequate time, that you will see that this facility is something you're building for the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I say 10, 20, 30, and because I really mean it, that maybe your synthetic surface may wear out and you can replace only the synthetic surface, but your sub-base should be something that serves you well for all those years, really 10, 20, 30 years, depending on the sport and the type of surface. So please make sure that you're getting the most out of your investment by way of how you're actually approaching the design part. So these are just a couple of, generic important factors that I wanted to bring up before I go into site-specific or, material-specific insights. So thank you for bearing with me on these two slides, which I feel a lot of you may be aware. Again, like I said, at the cost of repetition, I wanted to summarize because these are really something that will make a big difference on how well we utilize our investment. Okay, having said that, okay, just going into, we spoke about a few things here when you're talking about, for example, an indoor facility. Are you making sure that, like I spoke about the height, are you making sure that the height is sufficient? Is the floor area, how are you planning? Is it going to be catering for multiple sports? Most of the facilities that, we are likely to build may not necessarily cater for or may not be able to afford to be exclusive for one sport, especially when you're doing indoor. Indoor facility and indoor stadium is a very expensive proposition. So you have to make sure that the length and width and of course the height are sufficing to cater to as many sports as you can. Ideally, it should be no less than 8 or 9 sports. And there are many surfaces that allow you to conduct many sports on that, especially the polyurethane or polyvinyl chloride, what is called the cushioned PVC, like you may have heard of Terraflex or Omnisport or some of these. There are, of course, wooden floors that are very popular and very long lasting. They are good as well. Sometimes you may need to have some mats on that. But again, the point is here, everything from the color in the background. For example, you want to make sure, because you're going to use a white shuttle, you cannot be having a white color background, or the seating when you have should be of a color so that, the shuttle cock is, contrasted against the seat, the background. So all of these you need to be having in mind, including, how much natural light that you can actually use, because we certainly don't want to be restricted to using only the artificial lighting, how much airflow you can have. Of course, making sure that the airflow is coming in a controlled manner and is not causing what is cause a draft, the wind draft, where it can vary the path of the shuttle, whether when it is coming down that it should not deviate, and there are factors like that you need to consider. So please always take sufficient inputs from experts in the field when you are building certain, especially an indoor sports field, where all these factors, people tend to focus only on the surface. While it is a very critical element, we should make sure that it is that rest of the other elements on height and width and the length, as well as the colors we use and the lighting, all of these, fire exits, some storage, all these are, really catered for. And of course, we have to make sure that many, tend to sometimes ignore the water that may actually, the moisture and dampness that may come up from the surface below and damage whatever you may have above. So all of these. So basically, it's a 360-degree perspective that you need to have. So now diving into these specific surfaces, I'll be touching upon some 6 or 8 surfaces, types of surfaces. I'm starting with the most simple and the most common and, something that all of you are familiar with, which are called acrylic coats, or more popularly called synthetic coats. So technically the name is an acrylic coat. Anything man-made, anything that is not natural is obviously synthetic, and that may be, so to that extent, just saying synthetic coat may not be the correct term, because synthetic can mean whether it is acrylic, like in this case, like most of you are familiar. It can even be polyurethane. It can be polypropylene tiles. It can anything man-made. So it is always better to clarify as synthetic acrylic coat whenever you're referring to these coats. These are like, what are also called hard coats. These are very popular. I'm sure most of you probably having in your campuses. These are popular for typically tennis and basketball. outdoor. However, because of the lack of indoor facilities in many places, we may also use these for volleyball and badminton, which is actually not what these are suitable for or appropriate. But nevertheless, these are less expensive, fairly good outdoor courts that are commonplace. So I think in that sense, these are good to have. Within these, as most of you familiar, there is anything, people typically again tend to say, I want 8-layer cushion system, which is good to have, but that is, again, something that you may need only at the highest level. Examples of, where hard courts are played at the highest level are, for example, the US Open and the Australian Open, or quite a few, of course, other tournaments, but I'm just trying to highlight the couple of ones there. But in many cases, the benefit of the cushion system is a little bit, I would say, overemphasized. It is not really as much. In the earlier days when people were generally playing with very simple canvas shoes, which didn't have much cushioning, the soles were, very basic soles. It was useful to have. Nowadays, a good tennis shoe actually can provide you far more cushioning than, 8-layer cushion system. You may look at anything from a 5-layer system, and again, the what is there in each layer is quite apparent. I don't want to belabor the point. Basically, it's an alternate layer of the acrylic. Again, whenever we say a cushion layer, it is basically just a granules, microscopic, little larger than powder, kind of a 0.5 to 1 mm powder of a rubber powder that is mixed with the acrylic, and a layer is laid. That is called a cushion layer, on which again usually an acrylic layer. Of course, you usually finish off with the color and a finish coat and then the line marking. So these are typically what is there. So these are good. The limitation with these are that they are very susceptible to usage with wrong shoes. For example, if somebody were to come with very hard shoes or with spikes or something, they tend to get scraped. So you cannot allow, for example, somebody to come in and, for example, play football on that. If students go and play football on that, the shoes that they use for football may tend to scrape the acrylic layer off. Or if people tend to play cricket on that, in colleges, that any playing area, students want to go and play any game, not realizing what damage they may do. So, with the cricket ball, that can again cause damage and the erosion. Also, one limitation with this is you cannot use this for non-sports activities. You cannot place even plastic chairs on this and risk, the scraping away of the surface. So these are cost-effective, surfaces, but they have some pros and cons, and I wanted to just touch upon those. But the construction itself, typically, the construction, I will not go into each step, but basically this is a bituminous surface is really the construction that is most preferred as a base. The bituminous surface, wherein you're obviously treating the basic ground, then you're creating, this is from the left top corner. If you go down that row, you have a 40 mm stone layer, a 10, 20 mm, then you do bitumen and, basically an asphalting, a BMBC, what is called a bituminous macadam and a bituminous carpet. And then you do the leveling. It's generally a manual work because these are too small for sensor pavers to be operated. So usually there is a risk of some undulations, and which is why this top right side picture shows about how we may, after doing a seal coat also, we tend to do a watering of the whole surface to identify any ponding. You have to also remember that the International Tennis Federation, for example, does allow some level of, or some, probably up to 6 millimeters of standing water 30 minutes after it has stopped raining. So there are some guidelines. You will generally not have a completely ponding free, what is called, small, people sometimes refer to as bird baths also. But these are fairly common. You use something called a leveling slurry to level them out as best as you can. I think you can emphasize that it should probably be no more than 1 to 2 millimeters. And they are generally in a tennis court, the slope is to one side. Unlike I was mentioning earlier about a football field, where you may have slopes to both sides, in a tennis court, it is typically only to one side and about a 1% slope. So you cannot make it too steep. You cannot exceed 1%. And within that, you have to do the best you can. So we're generally very experienced court builders are preferred there, who will be able to build a very good sub-base with the acrylic and with the bitumen, and then the acrylic surfacing is done. Again, these are just steps of how these are all done. And these are, of course, all of you have these, basketball, tennis courts, or, various types that people do have. So that's very much there. Then I'm just coming to an option of what is fairly popular in the recent past, both for indoor and for outdoor. These are a little bit more expensive than acrylic coats. I would say quite expensive. For example, just to give you an example of, for example, you may get an 8-layer acrylic system, for example, anywhere from say about 80 to 100 rupees, depending on the quality of the material and the installation. I'm talking just the acrylic surfacing. The sub-base cost may be different. That itself may be another 75 to 100 rupees a square foot. However, a polyurethane surface alone, excluding the base, versus say at the higher end, say 100 rupees for an acrylic 8-layer, this could be upwards of 300 and typically even up to close to 400 rupees a square foot. So it is that expensive. But of course, this is much more long-lasting, much more cushioned, much smoother finish. Many benefits to this, but it is typically 3 to 4 times more expensive than an acrylic coating. These are, of course, good. There are types that are suitable for indoor and certain types of polyurethane. This PU is basically polyurethane, which are suitable for outdoor use. Again, I've touched upon these. They are better, they're because of the nature how it is. These are what is called cast in situ. Cast in situ means they are cast at site. In situ is at site, which means they are laid at site. So they actually come as very thick, viscous liquids. We have some cushion layer below where we do, for example, a 8mm or a 10mm rubber shock pad. And these shock pads can sometimes be cast in situ, which means they are, kind of laid at site, or they could be prefabricated rubber sheet rolls. They come in the form of rolls, 8mm, 10mm, whatever. And then on top of that, you have some, sorry, there's some power cut at my end, but hopefully it'll be back. So there is, then you have the polyurethane layer that will come up. And these are typically the polyurethane coats. And because of the fact that they are, cast in situ and have, better bonding, there is no cracks. Unlike in acrylic coats, you generally see more cracks. Here, because they are also self-leveling liquid, they tend to have less ponding or less, like I said, bird baths or any water standing there. There, of course, the chemicals are pretty good. This VOC means volatile organic compounds, which are, harmful chemicals. VOC free means they are really very good quality. And again, here I want to give an example or maybe an anecdote, or not really, but an important side light, I would say. Volatile organic compounds are common in any polyurethanes that are made from very cheap quality material. And which is why we insist that you should always insist that there should be a certificate that it is VOC free. I wanted to give an example. For example, in China, there have been many incidents where extremely cheap polyurethane has been used in schools there in China. And there are many examples, and you can find this even on, when you search on Google, that the students have, when playing on those surfaces, have developed, severe skin rashes and even nosebleed, which means they are inhaling vapors that continue to come out from these polyurethane surfaces after the installation and causing nosebleeds from the children. So these are, things that you want to be very careful when you are using some of these synthetic materials. Make sure that you are getting them from a very good, reliable source. I would say that the standards of production typically in some of the European countries and in America or some places are very safe to have. Even if they are a little bit more expensive, generally they are longer lasting and safer to use. Just my suggestion on those lines. Like I mentioned, there is this bottom that you see here is the rubber pad layer, and on which you have various other layers that come in and finish off with the polyurethane layer. You have an intermediate layer, you have a solvent-free top coating. I don't want to go into too much detail, but this is broadly how these are. So that we are, able to touch upon more of these without losing too much time in just any one of them. This is how a good polyurethane coat can look. This can sometimes be similar to how it will look even with polyvinyl chloride, the PVC, Target, Omnisports or the Terraflex kind of coats from, many suppliers. So these are the kind of surfaces with polyurethane. However, in the recent past, there is something that has come that is called a hybrid PU. So this is actually having a combination of both acrylic, where you have the acrylic layers at the bottom and the polyurethane layer at the top. So somewhere these are turning out to be not as expensive as a polyurethane coat, but they give better cushioning, less ponding, better finish than an acrylic coat. So they may be, for example, only 50% higher cost than an acrylic coat, not a 300% higher cost like a PU coat. But these are beginning to be quite popular. We are doing quite a lot of these hybrid polyurethane coats now, and the users are extremely happy. In fact, there are some sites done in Bangalore as well. I can share some details of some schools or other places, corporate campuses that were done. I'll not go into too much detail on this, but suffice it to say that there are acrylic layers that are done, and later the polyurethane coating comes on the top, and which is giving the best of both worlds.
Sir, you are muted, sir. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry. Yeah. I didn't want to go into too much detail about the comparison between acrylic and hybrid. Briefly, I mentioned the 2-3 key points, but this is what it is actually. Then we have, some of you may be familiar with the interlocking modular tiles. They are called interlocking modular sports tiles, or they are also called interlocking modular polypropylene tiles because that's the material, PP, with which they are made. You have some choices for both indoor and outdoor. This is an example in Bangalore itself in Tesco, where we have done an indoor coat used for badminton and various other sports as well. But there are many examples of how they could be used outdoors also. They are very, very long lasting. Typically they will last over 20 years, maybe even 25 years. They have different levels of how these are based on the surface, the underlay. They could be having with the cushion systems, with rubber cushioning or just directly on the surface itself. They are, by the nature of their design, being their interlocking, they can be permanently placed, of course, but they are, obviously portable as well. You can dismantle the entire coat and move it somewhere else in case you want to at a later time, ship that coat for whatever reason. The new building is coming up there, whatever. That way, your investment is reasonably protected. There being outdoor grade material, there are no issues about rain or whatever. And if the base is good, there is no danger or risk of any water standing. Very easy, high ease of maintenance. You also can use these for multi-sport and multi-purpose. Most of these are typically even approved by FIBA and by ITF, International Tennis Federation. And they also are good enough to, just to place furniture on and have any event. So if you're having, like, for example, we have this is an example of how the shock tower, some cushioning is provided by some rubber shock towers that come there. These are actually polypropylene tiles, but actually with just a wooden color laminate on top. This is not a wooden surface, but it can get you a wooden kind of a finish, just to look like a wooden coat, but these are polypropylene. So this is, again, what's a maple finish, but of course it has nothing to do with maple wood as such. So you have options like these. There are instances, I hope to see if, let me see if I have an example, but we have instances where schools, for example, use this in an indoor hall, which may double up both for play areas during the day. It can be also used for stage events. You may have a parent-teacher meeting or an annual day or a cultural fest or whatever, and you may also use it for a cafeteria. So these polypropylene tiles are, in that sense, very versatile. They suit for various purposes and truly multi-sport and multi-purpose. You can, of course, do multiple line marking, and which is what you should also look to do in any surface for that matter, indoor or outdoor, especially in a university kind of context where you can try to provide students with as many sports that can be played on a single surface. And this, in that sense, provides you those options where you are able to do multiple line marking. Again, this is an example of how I was talking about even for an indoor facility that you need to have sufficient planning. Same obviously holds true for outdoor. If I go back, or rather maybe let me just jump here, you can see that, with various colors, different sport marking is actually provided. When you look at it like this, you may wonder whether the sports person will get confused. But I'm sure all of you are sportsmen, and so have I been, and we know that when we are playing a certain sport, only that line marking, our mind is, sharp enough to pick up only on that particular sport line marking. So these are ways of how you can accommodate various, when we are speaking about multi-sport and multi-purpose, the fact that whether an outdoor or indoor facility can be designed to make sure that you are catering for, various sports like these. So these are some examples of, where they have been done. Now I'm coming to the cushioned PVC. We spoke of it briefly earlier, what some of you may be knowing as Gallant, what may be known as Terraflex, and what are known as Omni Sports or various other such systems, which are cushioned PVC flooring. They come in the form of rolled, and you have thicknesses anywhere from 3.5 millimeter and going up to maybe almost 9 millimeter. And in that, as you can see here, I'm just giving an example of a 6.5 millimeter intermediate level, where the thickness is usually made up mostly by the rubber layer below. And only the top 2 millimeter is your what is called the wear layer or the PVC layer, actually the polyvinyl chloride layer coming on the top. So the thickness that you have, the more and more thickness that you have is only to provide more cushioning. And certainly the lowest level thickness is sufficient enough to play. It is very inexpensive, but it may not provide the best cushioning. However, the intermediate range like 5 millimeter, like the 6.5 millimeter, are very useful and appropriate for a university or a training level facility. And only the 8.5 millimeter, 9 millimeter thicknesses are the ones that may be required only if you're hosting a national or international level competition. In this context, I must also mention that you do get portable rolls as well of PVC. So, for example, many of you have heard of these Yonex mats, and or nowadays Leaning also does. There are many other companies, including Target or others, who do portable mats that may be suitable for badminton. And these are typically, because of the fact that they have to be portable and easy to handle, they are only typically in a 3.5 millimeter and no more than 4 millimeter in thickness. So that's where you have the portable option also with these surfaces. Of course, cushioned PVC is suitable for large areas. If you can cover it with some, when you are going to use it for any non-sport events, you can cover it with some protective surface like a tarpaulin or something, and place simple light plastic chairs on top and use an auditorium or something for non-sport purposes. But these surfaces typically are very, very versatile. Again, they are certified and suitable for almost every indoor sport, from handball to volleyball to badminton to basketball to tennis to you name it, they are suitable. So PVC cushioned flooring are really a good choice as well, including, again, other options being polypropylene tiles. They are also the polyurethane surfaces. So there are all these benefits that you have with them. I think I touched upon some of these points already. There are some installation aspects that I'm not going into too much. And, for example, I spoke earlier about the dampness that may come from the ground, even through a concrete flooring, and how we usually try to make sure, first of all, of course, that the concrete floor itself is extremely leveled. Unlike outdoor, where you have to provide a slope for the rainwater to flow away, indoor, you always have to have what is called a 0-0 level, a complete 0-0 level. It has to be absolutely flat surface. and VDF kind of a cement flooring is done, and there are many ways to make sure that it is 100% flat flooring. Apart from that, prior to laying all these surfaces or even laying a wooden floor surface, there is a vapor barrier. It is very thin, like a few millimeters, it could be up to 6 millimeter. A vapor barrier is laid, which prevents moisture from below coming up through the surface and affecting your sports surface. So those vapor barriers are really important to have, and this is how you finished surfaces you can of course even get the finished surfaces in wooden finish also, like with the polypropylene tiles I mentioned. Even in PVC, cushioned PVC surfaces, you can get a wooden coat finish if people prefer to have that. Going over to some of the turf related this thing. Maybe this, of course, I'm giving an example of the hockey turf here. I mentioned specifically hockey. So you can see that there are these huge water jets, with the water guns, as they call, that are there used on a synthetic surface. Now, you may wonder, why is it that a synthetic surface needs water? So it is basically, in the case of synthetic turf, hockey turf is a very short fiber. And the nature of the tufting is that when you have very short fiber, these are typically much stiffer fibers, and they are very closely tufted. So you actually have, if I were to say, a fairly abrasive turf, which is used for hockey. But then the nature of the ball and the play and various other characteristics are such that you cannot play hockey on what would be a suitable turf for football, where it may be like a 50 to 60 millimeter tall turf with infill of sand, which I'll come to, silica sand and rubber granules. Here it is with no infill. It is, you are directly playing on turf. Of course, below the turf, you have a shock pad. So the water is actually used not for maintenance, as many people believe that you need water for maintenance. It is used only when there is a play or a training session planned on the surface. You will have a brief watering done for 15 minutes or so prior to the play. And of course, you have again usually during the half break. And the purpose of the watering is to keep the fibers a little soft, so that when you fall on that or you dive on it, you're not getting skin burns and what they call as rug burns, and you're having a scraping off of your knee or the elbow or forearms or something. So it is actually to prevent injuries. So just seeing this picture, I got reminded and I thought I'll just mention it. As you know, in hockey, of course, you have there are standards for national and international level by way of the different types of turf and different type of hockey field sizes. And there are, of course, within the hockey turf, while most of us tend to see only these water-based systems, I will touch upon that there are also these sand-based systems. Anyway, so most of you are familiar with hockey, so I'm not going into too much detail. Much of this information is available online. Your play area is, as you know, typically 91.4 meters in the length and 55 meters in the width. And you need to provide 5 meters on the length on each side behind the goal post, behind the goal line, that is, as a runoff area. And on the sides, it will be only 4 meters. Therefore, your total area will turn out to be 101.4 meters in the length and 63 meters in the width. Many times, of course, people tend to try and want the play area of a different color and the runoff area a different color. Nowadays, recently also you've seen in Olympics, the turf is entirely blue color. And the reason why it's blue color is not because it's anything better for the play or the players. In fact, the players feel it is too bright and very reflective in their eyes. On the other hand, this is mandated by the TV broadcasting channel, because they feel, or they have found out through research, that the blue color turf looks best on TV. So this color is actually decided more for TV audience. So if you're not necessarily going to be broadcasting any game in your campus, please don't spend more money in creating a blue color turf. It is actually a bit more expensive, you being very UV sensitive color. So, but anyway, it started with the London Olympics, where the play area was blue color and the runoff area was pink color. Nowadays, of course, they have done away with the pink color. I don't know why. And the whole field is basically blue color, if I'm not mistaken, only blue. There are details of the sub-base. This is also an asphalt sub-base, like a bituminous sub-base. And therefore, you have, like I mentioned earlier, you will have some slopes for the subbase. A bituminous subbase is fairly standard, except that you cannot bring in a road contractor and expect him to build a hockey subbase. So this is a mistake that many people do. In fact, many governments do, many sports departments. We struggle with trying to explain to them that whatever they have as standard rates that are defined for road contractor for bituminous work, they expect us to do the same work for very high precision and very high quality hockey subbase. So that's a struggle we have. But anyway, that's a different story. But there are, these subbase cross sections may also be available online. This is, of course, something that we have done in-house internally for our clients. So there are layers of how these are built, and every layer with what quality. And there are tests as to how to test whether the material used or the density, how many kgs per square meter, the depth, overall thickness, and the porosity, various factors are calculated. You have a perimeter drain on the side to ensure that the watering that you do for the field, that it's slowly taken away. Of course, even rainwater needs to keep going away. So, and now you may know why you see that splash on a hockey field, when they are playing. That's because it's actually intentionally watered. Of course, like I said, blue color is a popular one, but green is really more common. And therefore, that's how we do that. In terms of building a hockey field of the highest quality internationally, FIH have set down certain guidelines, and they have designated certain companies worldwide and have called them as FIH certified field builders. And obviously we are happy to say that we are one of the FIH certified field builders. And of course, the turf production also, they have certain standards and have designated some turf companies as FIH preferred suppliers. So, these are a couple of things that you can look into whenever you're looking to organize that. Here are some pictures of how the subbase is built. I will not take up too much of your time on this. Many of you are familiar with how these, the subbases are built. And of course, then we do a shock pad layer. Like I mentioned, there is a shock pad below the turf. Typically, it is 15 millimeter, and it is cast in situ. And cast in situ, like I said, it is the binder chemical and the rubber granules are mixed together in a mixer there and laid with a sensor paver conforming to the slopes and thickness and everything. And on top of that, we do the turf layer. This is how a finished field, I'm sure all of you have seen many of those, or many of you may be having them as well. This is a field we have done in Secunderabad for South Central Railway. Incidentally, talking of Karnataka, because most of you happen to be from there, we have finished recently a hockey field in Kodagu in Somwarpeta area. And of course, we have done quite a few other projects, other tracks and football fields and other things in various, there could be over 20, 25 fields, large projects that we have done in Karnataka, and maybe over 200 medium-sized projects as well, incidentally. I have some videos to play, but in the interest of time, I'll just skip them for now. I'm probably taking up way too much time. Dr. Vishwanath, if you can tell me how much time is remaining, I will try to, finish the session in that time, please.
So you can go ahead, sir. No issues.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm probably taking up much time. I'll try to expedite a bit. Like I said, apart from the water-based system, where you do need that at this time, the international competitions are held on water-based systems. And therefore, the highest level training facilities have to be water-based systems. And they are expensive, both to set it up and also to maintain, because you need typically 60 to 75,000 liters of water per session of play. So you really, have to build, for example, a 2 lakh liter tank, and you have to store, and sometimes people obviously store much more water because of their unpredictability of water availability. So you don't need to always necessarily construct a water-based system unless you are really using that facility for serious, level of training. If it is at an amateur level play, like for example, there are sand dressed and sand filled. There are two types of system which are broadly called sand-based system. We have done and they are also FIH certified, by the way. So like it indicates here on the right side, for this Don Bosco International School in Mumbai, we have done a sand dressed system, which is also FIH certified. That may not be suitable for international competitions. Like it says here, certified field national, which means they are good enough for national level play, even interstate play. and they come at a much lesser investment, and more importantly, ongoing maintenance is almost zero. You don't need to water them, you don't need to cater for anything, and they're also fairly good enough for other sports as well, though they are primarily designed for hockey. So this is an important point I wanted to touch upon. But again, this slide basically touches upon those differences. But again, the point is that you need not always go only for water-based, which are also called unfilled system. You can even go for sand-based or sand-filled, sand-dressed or sand-filled systems as well. Going on to football turf, again, this is something that many of you are familiar now, and they are very common. Unlike the hockey turf, which is only typically 13 millimeter only, a football turf can be anywhere, usually from 40 millimeter, but a good FIFA standard football turf starts at 50 millimeter, and there is another variety typically at 60 millimeter, though particularly in the case of field turf with whom we work, they also have a 63 millimeter turf as well. So these are the types of systems, in terms of the difference mainly between hockey and football. And the main other difference is that the football and other sports, most of these what are called long pile or tall pile, compared to short pile. The 13 millimeter hockey turf is called the short pile system. Anything from 40 millimeter onwards are called the tall pile or the long pile system, which will have infill. So this infill is usually a mix of silica sand and rubber granules. And again, there is a reason why there should be certain amount of silica sand, certain amount of rubber, and not too much of either of those and not too little. Because these are all very calibrated quantities, which many companies tend to compromise on. They may do it more of sand because it's cheaper, and it is not silica sand, it is general casual river sand. There are compromises that you may get into with that. The reason you have to do it in a certain ratio and a certain total quantity is that the ball bounce, for example, FIFA has done many tests to indicate, let me see if I have some pictures of the tests that will be there. In terms of ball roll or ball bounce, or this example actually of how the FIFA testing, how the ball bounce should be. For example, in one of the tests, basically it is indicated to see that when you drop a ball from a 2 meter height, how much it should bounce back. Okay, so there is a test to determine. It's actually an audio-based test, not by camera or visually. So it measures the gap between the two sounds as to how much time it has taken for the first for the ball to fall down from the defined height, and then after the first bounce. Then there is a ramp, there is a speed ramp, basically to see the ball roll, how far does it roll when you leave it from a certain spot on the ramp, and it flows down the ramp or rolls down the ramp, and there is a certain min max. It should reach a certain minimum distance, but should not exceed a certain other distance. So there are some defined, and there is a vertical deformation. There are 7 such tests that are done various parts of the field. So if your infill ratio is not correct, your surface will be either too hard or too soft. Of course, there are ways that people sometimes bypass just for the initial test, where they may do the system sufficient for the initial test, but 6 months or 1 year later it may turn out to be too hard. So these are reasons why the infill is important to calibrate very correctly. As you all know, the maintenance is almost maintenance-free, I would say. There are some minor maintenance, but I'll not take up too much time on that. All-weather playability, you don't need watering. These are outdoor-grade materials. They typically run about 10 to 12 years, with reasonable maintenance. It can be a bit longer also. And they are truly multi-sport, though they are primarily designed for football. Like I mentioned, there are, like in FIH, you have a preferred supplier. FIFA has a program which is called the preferred producer. So there are some 6 or 8 producers, worldwide turf producers, who are conferred with this category called the preferred producer. And I don't know if I have the other slide, but like I mentioned earlier, FIFA certification of a finished field, there are 2 categories. Like I said earlier, it used to be called 1-star and 2-star. Now they are called FIFA Quality and FIFA Quality Pro. So those are the 2 varieties. This is a typical sub-base. This also has a slope, but the main difference is that in a football field, usually it is only a crushed stone subbase. There is no bitumen at the top. So it's a fairly soft subbase, and the rainwater actually percolates down through the subbase itself. It can be going into the ground, but of course, because of the fact that we have to keep a field ready for usage even during rains or after a heavy rain, there is a perimeter drainage system also that is done with some drain pipes. But generally, these fields are generally designed to drain fairly fast. There are, of course, some designs, like in the case of field turf, where they're designed to drain water faster than the pace of rain. So, therefore, the play can continue even while it is raining. So this is a little bit on that. I'll skip this slide, which are just basically the advantages or the pros and cons of field turf or synthetic turf versus natural grass. I've explained a bit about how the subbase is built. The initial levels are same. After that, it's only a crust stone base, finishing off from bottom with the 40 mm, 20 mm, and 10 layer, and then you have the 6 mm and stone dust kind of layer. And then you get into the turf laying, where there could be ways of doing the turf laying, where stitching or gluing, and stitching is usually the most resilient. And then how you infill the whole thing. And when I say infill, like I said, you have to put in a lot of silica, sand, and rubber. Typically, a football field will have almost 280 to 300 tons of infill. You may have about 160 to 180 tons of sand and about 100 tons of rubber. So that's the amount of infill that will go into a large field, a tall pile, field. Coming to synthetic turf for multi-sport, again, the same turf is of course used, though it is not actually meant for athletics or something, but in some schools they may just lay it in a shape of an athletic track, and of course inside they may use. Of course, it is also at an amateur or a recreation level. They may use for volleyball or for cricket academies or a children's play area. All these are fine. Incidentally, for volleyball, we have done probably hundreds of courts, especially for the defense, Indian Air Force and others, who find this a very good recreation thing, injury-free and maintenance-free, better than the normal hard ground course that they would generally have. Synthetic athletic tracks, again, something that most of you are familiar, so I'll not take too much time. I'll only, again, these are dimensions and everything that you're familiar with. You need to also be aware that, you don't always need necessarily a 400-meter track. You can many times make do even with a 200-meter track if it is at a amateur level, or if there is a constraint of space or budget. You can do even a 200-meter track. And unlike a 400-meter track, or rather we should not visualize that the 200-meter track is half the size of a 400-meter. A 200-meter track is only 1/4 the size of a 400-meter track. Sorry, just give me one minute, please. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, so sorry, I had to just, there's some noise in the background. So blue color tracks, again, are very nice to see, but you don't necessarily need to invest in a blue color track. Again, they are more expensive, being very susceptible to ultraviolet rays. You need to have a UV seal coat that is done. Again, we have done some of these tracks, but then mostly the terracotta, the brick color tracks that you see are more common. Athletic tracks, as you know, these are long lasting, and they are of course also very expensive. A typical 400-meter track, depending on you could have 6 lane or 8 lane or 10 lane. Again, this is an important point, because you don't need a 10 lane unless you're actually going to host the Olympics. Otherwise, most tracks, even at the international level, actually have only 8 lanes. And even at the national level, if you have just a 6-lane track, you are eligible for the World Athletics certification, though you need to have minimum at least 1D. Of course, the alignment I spoke of, and then you need to have a pit for steeplechase and an area for various throws. All of that also have to be accommodated. In this, you have 2-3 varieties. The most popular is actually, what is called the full PUR. You may have heard this term, full polyurethane. This is basically full polyurethane. Basically means that the athletic track is laid in 3 layers, and all the 3 layers are going to have polyurethane, which is really the heart and soul of any athletic track. So, in a full PU, it's also, instead of full PUR, it's also called full PU. It is more expensive, and basically each layer is done with polyurethane mixed with rubber granules. Now, the polyurethane is the one that gives the color to the track, and if you use, terracotta or a brick color or a maroon color polyurethane, you'll get a maroon colored track. The top layer that you see is usually finished with EPDM granules. As you may see here, the top layer is with EPDM granules, right? And EPDM is also, the EPDM granules are of the same color as that maroon color, and therefore you get a maroon track. But the layers below the top layer, I mentioned about 3 layers, the bottom layer and the middle layer may be done with less expensive SBR rubber. It is perfectly acceptable. It is as per international standards. You don't need to put in very expensive EPDM rubber for the bottom and the middle layer. So that's why in this picture also you may see that in the lower layers, in the middle, what you see here is black dots, and that indicates the black SBR rubber, styrene butadiene rubber it's called, SBR basically, and the top is the EPDM. Compared to this, a less expensive system is what is called the sandwich system. Sandwich system means the top layer will be the same with the polyurethane and EPDM granules, but the layer below, you'll be doing only a single layer with like a 10 millimeter thick shock pad, just like the shock pad you would do for a hockey field. So it is not with polyurethane. You will still use the SBR, the styrene butadiene rubber, but you will mix it with binder. Binder is also good, but it is not as great as polyurethane, maybe less cushioning than polyurethane as well. But it is sandwich system also meets international standards. It will also meet, again, within IAAF, there is class 1 and class 2 certification. Sandwich system also meets class 1 certification. So there are some places where it is actually preferred. In fact, some years back for the national games in Kerala, they had insisted that they want to do a sandwich system and held the national games on a sandwich system. These are very, very good. And again, I emphasize they are less expensive than the polyurethane full PU systems, though the life may be slightly shorter. And but the good thing with these systems is that when you find that the top layer that you do, the 3 to 4 millimeter polyurethane layer is wearing off after 5, 7, 8 years, depending on usage, you can just redo the surfacing of the top layer alone. Apart from this, there is another layer which is not relevant for India. Let me go back here. It's called the spray coating system. It is done where you have a 10 millimeter shock pad, but on top of that you just spray polyurethane with a airless sprayer. It is called. Not at all recommended. Please don't even consider that. It is many limitations with that. So those are 3 types of athletic tracks. There is, of course, a less used, less common system also called full pore full EPDM. So in the bottom 2 layers also, instead of SBR, EPDM rubber is used. It provides enhanced cushioning. We have done this incidentally for Indian Air Force Center in Jalahalli in the Bangalore area. Jalahalli has this full pore full EPDM track, but it is probably too expensive for regular usage and probably not recommended so much. I think a sandwich system or a full PU system suffices. I've kind of explained this process, this sub-base construction I've explained, and you have seen how the shock pad layer for a hockey field is done. It's the same for an athletic track. And then with the polyurethane, here it is cast in situ. You actually pour it on the surface after you do the pore sealer and other such layers. And then using what is called a squeegee, it is like a, like a wiper that you do on the surface. You actually pull the self-leveling polyurethane liquid all across the surface. And then what you do is you broadcast, you spread, you throw rubber granules on top until it is fully absorbed in the polyurethane. So that process is called broadcast, where you have, with spades, you actually shovel the EPDM rubber onto the wet polyurethane, and that absorbs into the surface, and you get the, once it dries, it becomes the finished surface. Like I said, you have class 1, class 2 certifications. This is how a synthetic track would look like. We have to touch upon that. Sometimes, again, this is also important for you to just have a rough idea on this slightly maybe coming at a different time, but I'll just touch upon this left side. We already touched upon the athletic track. So the total area that you may need, length, width, you can see 90 by 45 is the play area for a national level. And 100 in length and 64 in width is the play area, minimum play area for an international level. But this is excluding the runoff area. You need to have usually at least 3 meters or minimum 2 meters on the length and at least 2.5 meters on side. There's a slight error here. So you generally end up, actually 2.5 meters on the length. So if you add that to 100 plus 2.5 plus 2.5, you end up at 105. And on the width, you take 64 plus 2 plus 2, and you end up with 68. So this is the basic minimum area that you need. After that will come the drain area and the dugout and fencing and all of that. Even in athletic tracks, again, you'll be able to easily calculate the total length and width that you may need to earmark. They're fairly easy depending on the number of lanes that you have. A lot of information that's available. This is a term that you will see very often, MORTH specifications, which is by Government of India in terms of the construction of bituminous surfaces, but they are not. They have to be minimum MORTH, but to conform to these international standards, it has to be far more precise than just the MORTH surfaces. Then there is a certain classification of whether you have large granular or less granular, permeable or impermeable bituminous surfaces. So all of that. Slopes, I think in some context we have touched upon all of these. For an athletic track, for example, the slope is inward. Unlike football fields and hockey fields where the slope is away, in an athletic track, from your outermost lane, actually the slope is inward. It also provides a light banking, but more importantly, it allows the water to flow inside. So an inner drain is actually more crucial in an athletic track. And then there are things like, for example, high stress areas. Typically the long jump, pole vault, triple jump and javelin throw areas and high jump areas are all high stress areas. So instead of the typical 15 millimeter thick athletic track, those are typically 20 millimeter and some areas are even 25 millimeter thickness. There are many ways how those areas can be optimally used. Sometimes people are able to make do with just 1 D and not necessarily do 2 Ds. So on a case specific thing, we'll be able to advise. We've heard, of course, all of you have seen historically that natural grass has always been the preferred choice until the last 20 years or 25 years where synthetic surfaces have become very common. Now, in the recent past, there is something that has come up which is a mix of both. It is a hybrid grass solution. So hybrid, as the term implies, it is a mix of both synthetic turf and natural grass. So there is actually a synthetic turf carpet kind of thing, again, for want of a better term, or a roll or something, which is very loosely tufted, as in there are gaps between the synthetic turf fibers. And this is laid on a surface where it is actually meant for grass to grow. And then the grass is grown between the gaps of those, between the synthetic fibers. So what you have, of course, the synthetic fiber will come up only to 1 centimeter height. And the natural grass is allowed to go to a 2 centimeter height. So the lawn mowing is done so that your lawn mowing height is set to only 2 centimeter, and therefore it will never cut the 1 centimeter synthetic turf that is at the bottom. The synthetic fibers are allowing tremendous resilience and support for the natural grass, not only on the surface above, but even below, where the roots kind of intertwine with these with the synthetic fibers and actually form a much better root zone and a much richer and stronger root zone, allowing a richer and a better quality of grass growth. So you will be playing on a grass surface, but actually it is supported with the synthetic fibers at the roots or just at the base of the grass fibers. So this system has now become the most popular choice for every elite stadium in the world. So this is you name it. In fact, it has started from around 2010 or so when South Africa, I think, was the first World Cup venue to use it. and then later in Brazil, and then previously where in Russia that it happened, and in the upcoming ones in Qatar. Every place, all the elite stadiums are going in with hybrid turf. So this is an example of course, there are two types of hybrid solution. One is the injection system, where fibers are individually injected. They are probably up to 20 million fibers that are injected like that. They are injected to a depth of 18 centimeters, and only 2 centimeters will be, that's what is exposed above is the 1.5 to 2 centimeters. And then you have the roll system, where these may come in terms of the rolls that I mentioned. Incidentally, in India, now recently, so as you can see here, especially the picture on the right, it will show that there are a lot of gaps that are there provided between the synthetic fibers, and through which the grass will grow very densely, and the sand that you see there is actually the grass growing medium. So this is again not go into too much detail. Basically, there is something called USGA base, the certain standards of how it is a sand-based system, the sub-base that is built, and that is the grass growing medium on which we have the synthetic fibers. So this is allowing for, the roots also, as you can see, extremely long roots that are developing very healthy, strong roots, and which is actually helping the health of the grass above. In India, I wanted to mention that though it is not public information, again, I'm just sharing just for information within this group. We recently signed a contract to provide South Asia's first hybrid turf system for a club called FC Madras. And they are building a very modern and high-tech football academy in Mahabalipuram, outside Chennai. And we have signed a contract recently. So in about 6 months or so, India will have its first hybrid turf project as well, football field of FIFA standards. So that will be something that everybody can hopefully try and experience at some point. So there are many benefits to why elite clubs use this, because it is providing a better resilience, more playing time, good grass surface that the top players want, cooling up, cool surface, everything. There are many, many benefits. I just wanted to introduce the concept to you at this time without it being basically a session on hybrid turf. But this is obviously more expensive than synthetic turf itself, and there is maintenance also required. So there are some pros and cons, but for elite level stadiums and for even national level stadiums, I would say a hybrid turf is the way to go from here. But I would still say that from a one-time standpoint of investment and the fact that the ongoing maintenance is almost zero, the synthetic turf solutions would be the best for many intermediate, amateur training recreation facilities, as per my judgment. This is a little bit on, some examples. You see the best of stadiums worldwide. Wembley or obviously MU, all of them having these. So this pretty much most of what I wanted to touch upon. I'm just skimming through some of these hybrid slides, which probably right now are not so relevant to go into. There are I don't know if I can play the video now, but let's just move on in the interest of time. So this is basically, I just want to cover on various types of sports surfaces. Again, there is tremendously more detail to go into, and I'm sorry I took probably much longer than I should. I'm sorry about it, just going in the flow, but on and off, I was seeing some comments that this is useful and beneficial, so I just went into a bit more detail. So I'll stop here, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take that, and I leave it back to you, Dr. Vishnath.
Thank you very much, sir. There is two questions. One from Kitaki Pitale. What are all the court colors we can make it in synthetic court?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. There was no audio for some time. Can you repeat that, please?
What are all the colors will be there in making a courts?
No, depends on which court. I mean, obviously, if you look at polypropylene, you can get it in maybe a dozen colors. If you want indoor PVC or PU, you'll get in a dozen colors. Outdoor acrylic, you get in maybe popularly green or maroon or blue. So colors, usually there's no limitation. My only caution about the colors is that when you go in for light colors, what are UV sensitive colors like orange or yellow or blue, they are more susceptible to fading and decoloration very soon. So unless you're actually having a UV seal coat done on that, which is expensive, or the material is certified that they already have done UV treatment to those surfaces for these light colors, it is better not to go in for those light colors. In fact, in India, maybe with pollution or lack of maintenance or other dust coming in, it may look more decolored than maroon or some of the other conventional colors that are better off and more outdoor grade ready.
Thank you, sir. One more question from Dr. Muralidhar MP from ATME. How we can avoid grass from this acrylic coats? Because in his college campus, we are facing this problem. And can you suggest the best method to avoid growing grass in coats?
Yeah, in the acrylic coat, see, basically the problem would start at the time of the subbase preparation. Usually you are required to actually use a weed killer or any other mechanism that will actually ensure that there is no grass that will grow beneath the concrete surfacing that you do. The second issue comes in when there are cracks in the concrete, and therefore, sometimes just the dust or other things getting filled in those cracks are enough for some grass blades to grow through. Beyond probably plucking them out, maybe you can also do some chemical application in these areas where you see grass growing and where these weed killers or other means of killing the grass roots are there, apart from plucking them out from the root, of course. So these are the ways to do that. So it depends. If you're building a new facility, you have to take care prior to building the subbase. If it is after that, then you have to do surface treatment for that.
Thank you, sir. Over to Rupa, madam.
Thank you, sir. The tagline in one of your slides said, redefining infrastructure. That addresses everything, in fact. And you always kept us informed about the challenges and the importance of the facilities at amateur, training and the certification levels. And in nutshell, sir, what we were able to understand was the science and engineering of the sports surfaces. Thank you, sir, for making it happen. And we are very elated to have Dr. Amarnath KK, Principal and Chairman, Department of Physical Education, Bangalore University, Bangalore, to address the gathering and share a few thoughts with all of us here. Over to you, sir. Amarnath, sir.
Amarnath, sir, please unmute yourself. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir. You are unmuted. Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Sir, audible, sir. You can speak, sir. ಸರ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಸರ್ ನೀವು.
ಸರ್ ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಸರ್.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್. ಮಾತಾಡಿ
ಸರ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಏನು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಸರ್ಫೇಸಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ರೀತಿಯ ಒಂದು ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನ ನಾವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಪೀಚ್ ಇಂದ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಂಗಾಯ್ತು ಸರ್. ತುಂಬಾ ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸರ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ?
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್, ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಬಹಳ ಖುಷಿ ಆಯ್ತು ಸರ್. ಮತ್ ನಮಗೆ ಈ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಹೊಸದೇ ಆಗಿದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ತರದ ಏನ್ ಸರ್ಫೇಸಸ್ ಇದೆ ಒಳಾಂಗಣ ಮತ್ತು ಹೊರಾಂಗಣ ಆಟಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಕ್ರೀಡಾ ಮೈದಾನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಅದರದ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದ್ರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿರುವಂತದ್ದು ಮತ್ತಂತದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಅದ್ರ ಡೆಪ್ತ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಸರ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಸರ್.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಓವರ್ ಟು ಅಮರ್ನಾಥ್ ಸರ್.
Vishwanath sir, is Amarnath sir able to speak?
Sir, there is a network issue.
Engineering Bangalore. Bangalore and Maharaj College, Mysore. Respected resource person.
Sir, voice is not properly audible, sir. Amarnath sir.
Maybe he can try without the video, perhaps. Yeah.
Over to Rupa madam. Please continue.
ವಿಶ್ವ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್.
ಹಲೋ.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಸರ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಡಿಸ್ಟರ್ಬೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್ ಅಮರ್ನಾಥ್ ಸರ್.
ಹೌದಾ? ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಸರ್. ತುಂಬಾ
ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಹೋಗಿ
ಸರ್. ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ಅವರ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ getting delayed. Over to Rupa madam.
Thank you. We regret for the inconvenience. There's some technical glitch from Amarnath's side. Sorry, we could not make it. Loop is always incomplete and unfilled without any acknowledgements. As a token of goodwill gesture, may now request Dr. Vishwanatha Sihan, convener, Director of Physical Education, RV College of Engineering, to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, madam. Very good morning to one and all. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Dr. Vishwanath, CN, Director of Physical Education, RV College of Engineering, Bengaluru. Take this privilege and honor to propose the vote of thanks and extend sincere thanks to all the members on this occasion who participated in this program, Concepts and Design of Sports Surfaces. On behalf of Department of Physical Education and Sports, RV College of Engineering, Bengaluru, SJB Institute of Technology, Bengaluru, SBRR Mahajana First Grade College, Mysuru, in association with Sports Engineering Association, India. First and foremost, we take this opportunity to extend sincere thanks to Rashtriya Shikshana Samiti Trust, Sri Adi Chinchanagiri Shikshana Trust, and Mahajana Education Society for giving support to organize a mega event in grand manner. I extend our gratitude to Dr. Puttaraju, Vice Chancellor, Mandya University, Mandya, for accepting our invitation and also delivered the keynote address on this seminar. Sir, your presence and encouraging words have motivated all the participants. I extend our gratitude to today's speaker, Mr. Anil Kumar Suravaram, Managing Director, Great Sports Tech Limited, Hyderabad, and also a Founder Director of Sports Engineering Association, India. In his busy schedule, he accepted our invitation to share his valuable knowledge to all the participants and enlighten all of us. I think all the participants have got benefited with this session. On behalf of RV College of Engineering, SJB Institute of Technology, SBRR Mahajana First Grade College, Mysore, and Sports Engineering Association. Thank you very much, sir. I thank our beloved principals, Dr. K.N. Subramanya, sir, Principal RV College of Engineering, Dr. Ajay Chandran CK, Principal SJB Institute of Technology, Bengaluru, Dr. B.R. Jaikumari, Principal SBRR Mahajana First Grade College, Mysuru, for supporting us to conduct this mega event successfully. I thank Dr. M.S. Das Gupta, President, and Dr. Pinto Modak, Secretary, Sports Engineering Association, India, helping us to organize the event. Thank you very much, sir. I also thank Major Raghavendra C., Senior Manager, Estate and Facility, RV College of Engineering, for the welcome address and supported us to organize this event successfully. Thank you, sir. I extend my sincere thanks from the bottom of my heart and all the advisory committee members to make this event a grand success. First of all, Dr. Anand Nadigir sir from Dharwad, Dr. Amarnath from Bangalore University, Dr. Madhyaligan S from Mysore University, Dr. P.C. Krishnaswamy from Bangalore University, Dr. Venkatesh C from University of Mysore, Dr. Kannur from Gulbarga University, Dr. Gerald Santosh from Mangalore University, Dr. Gajanan Prabhu from Kuvempu University, Dr. Rajkumar M. Patil from Akkamadevi Women's State University, Dr. B.M. Patil from Karnataka University, Dr. R. Venkatesh, Dr. M.S. Gangarajaya, Mr. Shivashankar, Mr. Madhu from Alvas, Dr. Prasad from BGS College, Professor Venkat Reddy from KGF, and also Venkatesh from YMCA College of Engineering for given advising and conduct this event in a grand manner. I thank all the HODs, staff, and sports committee members make this event a grand success. I thank all the sports fraternity who joined this seminar for making a grand success. I thank Mr. Rangnath GH, coordinator, and Dr. Bhaskar HN, organizing secretary of the National Seminar of Concept and Design of Sports Surfaces, for their enormous cooperation for organizing this seminar. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants from around the nation enrolled and participated in this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of entire team of RV College of Engineering, SJB Institute of Technology, SBRR Mahajana First Grade College, and Sports Engineering Association, we are most grateful to all speakers and participants for this event. I also thank the department staff members for their continuous support to organize this event in a grand manner. Thank you one and all. Over to Rupa Madam.
Thank you, sir, for the acknowledgements. I thank for everyone being with us and making it happen and enjoyable. I would like to officially conclude the session by drawing down the curtain with a very famous quote of Vince Scully: "Good is not good when better is expected," towards further explorations and innovations. Thank you all for being with us and making it happen. With a special note, I conclude for the YouTube viewers, there's a feedback link posted for your benefit. Please do repeat. Thank you all. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you all. Thank you, Rupa madam. And thank you all the organizing committee members on behalf of Sports Engineering Association. I thank special thanks to Anil Kumar Suroram sir for being with us and enlighten all of us in a very good manner. Thank you very much, sir. I request all the participants, feedback link has been posted in chat box. You can just fill your valuable feedback in the link as given. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.